The moon hung low in the midnight sky, casting eerie shadows across the overgrown courtyard of the abandoned asylum. I stood there with my heart pounding, the cold air sending shivers down my spine. In the dim glow of my flashlight, the cracked and broken windows of the derelict building looked like empty eye sockets, staring back at me. It was the perfect setting for a horror story, but I was determined to explore what lay inside. This is the tale of my harrowing adventure as I stepped into the darkness of the abandoned asylum that had a sinister past. Before starting this abandoned tale, we request you to subscribe for more upcoming videos like this. The asylum, known as Street Agnes Sanatorium, had been closed for decades, shrouded in chilling legends of ghostly apparitions and unspeakable horrors. People said that it was a place of suffering and torment, where patients were subjected to cruel experiments, and the spirits of those who had met tragic ends still lingered in the shadows. With my friend, Sarah, and our cameras in tow, we decided to embark on this ghostly adventure. We both shared an insatiable curiosity for the supernatural, and this was an opportunity too tempting to pass up. Armed with our flashlights, we stepped through the rusty, creaking gate that led to the asylum's entrance. The air grew colder as we ventured further, and a sense of foreboding filled the atmosphere. As we walked down the echoing hallway, the sound of our footsteps reverberated through the empty corridors. The walls were peeling, and the dim light from our flashlights flickered as we made our way deeper into the asylum. The air smelled damp and musty, and we could hear distant, unsettling noises that sent shivers down our spines. The asylum had a long, dark history. It had once housed the mentally ill and the destitute, but rumors suggested that it had also been the site of bizarre experiments conducted by a sinister doctor who believed he could cure insanity with macabre procedures. The building had eventually been closed due to allegations of abuse and unethical treatment. Our exploration continued, and we entered a room with shattered windows, allowing the moonlight to illuminate the decaying remnants of medical equipment and tattered, blood-stained curtains. We couldn't help but wonder what kind of suffering had transpired in that very room. Suddenly, a faint, mournful wail echoed through the darkness, making our hearts race. Sarah and I exchanged alarmed glances. It was as if the spirits of the past were trying to communicate with us. We decided to conduct an EVP, electronic voice phenomena, session to capture any possible paranormal activity. As we played back the recording, we heard an eerie voice saying, "Help me. Please, help me." Chills ran down our spines, and we couldn't deny that something otherworldly was happening within the asylum. We decided to continue our exploration, capturing as much evidence as we could. We ventured further into the asylum, finding ourselves in a massive hall that had once been used for therapy and group sessions. The faded, peeling wallpaper depicted scenes of happiness, but the asylum's history had darkened these walls with despair. As we continued our exploration, we noticed that the whispers and faint cries had grown more distinct. We entered one of the patient rooms, and there we found a child's rusty crib, covered in a layer of dust. This sent shivers down our spines as the rumors of child patients enduring cruel treatments came to mind. Sarah's flashlight flickered, and we heard a spine-chilling giggle, the unmistakable laughter of a child. We looked at each other in fear, realizing that we were not alone. We continued down a corridor that led us to the asylum's basement, where the darkest secrets were rumored to be buried. The air became heavy, and an oppressive feeling washed over us. The room we entered was pitch black, and the temperature dropped dramatically. Sarah and I were huddled together, our breath visible in the cold. Then, we heard footsteps behind us, slow and deliberate. We spun around, pointing our flashlights into the darkness, and there, before our very eyes, we saw a shadowy figure, a specter from the past. It was a nurse, dressed in a tattered, blood-stained uniform. Her hollow eyes met ours, and she reached out towards us. We screamed and scrambled to escape, but the door had slammed shut, trapping us in the basement with the vengeful apparition. The temperature continued to plummet, and the room seemed to grow smaller, suffocating us. The ghostly nurse moved closer, and we could hear her whispered pleas for help, just like on the EVP recording. In sheer terror, we fumbled with the door, managing to force it open, just as the ghostly nurse reached out to touch us. We fled the basement, not looking back, and ran through the dark, echoing corridors. Our cameras continued to capture the frightening events, including the chilling apparition, which seemed to be pursuing us. As we neared the exit, we heard a final, spine-tingling cry from the asylum. It was the anguished scream of a tormented soul, echoing through the night, a reminder of the asylum's grim history. We burst through the front doors and tumbled out into the moonlit courtyard, gasping for breath. After escaping the asylum, Sarah and I sat on the grass outside, still shaking from the encounter with the ghostly nurse. Our cameras had captured the entire ordeal, and we couldn't believe the eerie evidence we had gathered. We knew we needed to share our experience with the world, but it was clear that the asylum had left a lasting impression on us. We played back the footage we had captured, and the image of the nurse reaching out to us in the dark basement sent shivers down our spines all over again. It was surreal to think that we had come face to face with an apparition from the past. We couldn't help but wonder about the stories and lives that had been lost within those walls. As we reviewed the footage, we noticed something peculiar. The audio recording had picked up not only the nurse's pleas for help, but also the faint sound of children crying. It was as if the anguished spirits of the asylum were trying to communicate with us, sharing their pain and suffering. We were left with unanswered questions about the children's fate and the nurse's role in it. Our curiosity and determination to uncover the truth were still burning bright, despite the fear that had gripped us. We decided to research the history of the asylum further, hoping to shed light on the dark mysteries that surrounded it. We discovered old newspaper articles and testimonies from former staff members that confirmed the stories of abuse and neglect. With the evidence we had gathered and the newfound historical information, we couldn't resist the urge to return to the asylum for a more comprehensive paranormal investigation. Armed with EMF detectors, infrared cameras, and voice recorders, we re-entered the asylum, determined to make contact with the spirits and perhaps offer them some closure. As we explored the asylum again, we felt the presence of the spirits even more strongly. The air grew colder, and the eerie cries and whispers became more pronounced. We conducted a spirit box session, asking questions and receiving chilling responses that confirmed the tragic history of the place. The spirits seemed desperate to tell their stories and find some form of release. Our investigations led us to a hidden room in the basement, concealed behind a bricked-up wall. Inside, we found old documents and journals belonging to the asylum's staff. These revealed the doctor's cruel experiments and the plight of the child patients, confirming the horrifying tales we had heard. It was a heart-wrenching discovery, shedding light on the unspeakable suffering that had taken place there. We shared our findings with local historians and authorities, hoping to bring justice to the victims and the closure they so desperately needed. The asylum was eventually recognized as a historical site with a dark past, and efforts were made to preserve its history and remember the lives that had been affected. Our explorations and investigations had come full circle, from a terrifying encounter with a vengeful spirit to uncovering the asylum's disturbing history. We couldn't erase the memories of that night, but we found solace in knowing that our efforts had brought attention to the horrors of the past and had given a voice to those who had been silenced for so long. Though the asylum still stands as a chilling reminder of its dark legacy, it is no longer forgotten, and the tormented souls that once dwelled within its walls may finally find peace. Our journey had been both harrowing and enlightening, and it left us with a profound respect for the spirits that still linger in the shadows, waiting to share their stories with the world. Our exploration of the abandoned haunted asylum at midnight had been a terrifying journey into the unknown. The experiences we had encountered were beyond anything we had ever imagined. We knew we had captured substantial evidence of paranormal activity on our cameras and audio recordings, but we were also profoundly affected by what we had witnessed. The spirits of the past still lingered within the asylum, and they had left an indelible mark on us. Our adventure had been a chilling reminder of the suffering that had taken place within those walls. As we walked away from the asylum, we couldn't help but wonder if we had disturbed something in the afterlife, something that would forever haunt us in our dreams. One thing was for certain. Our exploration had unlocked the dark secrets of the asylum, and its haunted legacy would continue to live on, forever etched in our memories. Please subscribe to this channel for more interesting tales and stories.